I'm going to invite you to turn to the book of Proverbs. Turn my thing on here. And we're going to get started, because if you were with us last week, you know we're working our way through Proverbs. And we started talking about finances. And I thought, man, we're going to cover this in 1 week. It won't be a problem. And good grief, I realized, no, there's way too much to cover. So it turned into part 2. And guess what? There's a lot of stuff in part 2. So we're gonna go quick. We began our study by focusing on the idea of stewardship. Now, what does that mean? That means everything that I am, everything that I have, everything that I ever will be or ever will have actually isn't mine. It actually belongs to the Lord. And He has invested His resource, His gifts, His skills, His time, His opportunity. He's given all of that to me so that I can manage it, not in Vince's best interest, but in His best interest, so that as we saw, and we'll be there shortly, in Proverbs 3, verse 9, we are honoring the Lord with our wealth. Now, when we started with the idea of stewardship, I want us to think of that as that's the foundation for everything that we're going to talk about in the area of finances. And we broke the area of finances into 2 parts. We covered the first part last week, and it focused on how did Proverbs advise us to go about the business of making money, of making a living. And we talked about good old-fashioned hard work. We talked about the importance of saving. We live in this consumer-oriented society where we are bombarded with the idea that we need to consume. And a lot of people, they spend all that they make. And Solomon advised us, no, don't spend all that you make. Learn to save so that in time you can take those savings and begin to invest those savings where you're putting your money to work for you. And as you work and save and invest, that is how you improve your status, your position in life, which again is absolutely what God intends for us. When you go back to the garden, God creates Adam and Eve, He puts them in the garden, and He says, you see all this stuff here that I've created? I'm giving it to you as a gift. And man was responsible to use that gift to improve his life. And so if we want to get ahead, we need to learn how to work, save, and invest. That brings us to the second part of our study, where we're going to focus on, once we start making money, how are we to manage it? Again, with the mindset, we're going to honor the Lord with our wealth. When you start looking at the idea of managing your money, we're going to break this down into 3 parts. The first part, I believe, and the reason it's first is because it's probably the key to success. We really need to establish a budget. Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Now, you look at that and you say, hey, Vince, I don't see the word budget there. Second word, plans. You know what a budget is? It's a plan. That's all a budget is. It's a financial plan where instead of making hasty, impulsive decisions in the spur of the moment, I didn't realize this until I was talking to John, my son-in-law, and he has, I think, is a degree in marketing or business or something like that. But he was explaining, you know why they have all the candy bars and chewing gum and stuff like that at the cash register? Impulse buys. They get you that, oh, I need this, I need that. And it always costs more than if you went somewhere else in the store and you bought a pack of candy bars instead of the single candy bar. They're counting on impulse buys. Well, when you have a budget, what you're actually doing is you're making financial decisions in advance rather than the spur of the moment. Now, when you look at a budget is going to have a time span. Some of our bills are yearly bills. I have a life insurance policy. Every January they send me my bill and I pay it. Now I can pay it off in a month. They charge you to pay it off in a month, or every time you break it down they charge you. I am frugal. I'm not cheap, I'm frugal. I'm cost conscious. So I pay it off every January. My real estate, I think that's October or November. I pay it yearly. And so some bills are yearly, some bills are monthly, like utility bills, credit card bills, they're monthly. Some things we buy on a regular weekly basis. I'm sorry to bring up gas, that might be one of them. Food, that's another one. But they're weekly. Every now and then you might want to do a special project. That special project needs to have a budget. And so you can look at your budget and you can see, how do I know I'm going to have money in January to pay my life insurance? My budget answers that question for me. See what I'm saying? So there's a time span. A good budget will reflect godly values. And what I mean by that, it's going to include things like savings, generosity, being a good citizen, contributing to the world around me. And it's going to include the idea of contentment. And a good budget is going to give you a sense of peace, a sense of calm. You will have financial freedom because what the budget is doing is you are taking control of your finances rather than your finances having control over you. And that means you can sleep well at night. And that's because there are benefits to a budget. First of all, you can prioritize your spending when you have a budget so that you know what's more important, the candy bar at the cash register or your rent or your mortgage or your utility bill or your car payment. I think most of us have enough sense that we would say, no, my rent, my mortgage, my utilities, they're more important. But yet somehow, because we don't manage our money over the course of the month, it gets time to pay the rent or pay the mortgage or pay this or that. An important bill, and I don't have money. You had the money, you spend it on Twinkies. And I know you like Twinkies. Tough. That's the one that I use all the time. Don't spend your rent on Twinkies. It's a bad idea. So you get to prioritize your spending. So you make sure the most important things are covered. Secondly, you're able to set and achieve goals. And we have a perfect example of this coming up in the not too distant future here. A couple years back, I couldn't tell you when, we kind of evaluated our parking lot. We knew we had problems. We actually looked into how much it would cost to resurface and figured out very quickly, whoa, that's cost prohibitive. We better really take care of our parking lot. So we came up with the plan. Every 3 years, we're going to resurface it. And we created a line item in our budget so that every month a certain amount of money goes into an account, parking lot reseal. And every third year it will be resealed That's this year. It's going to be resealed. We're actually getting bids right now. And we don't know what the bid is going to be. But we know we have a pool of money set aside which will either pay for it or pay for most of it, so we don't have to scramble. How in the world are we going to pay for this? This is how we're going to pay for it. Over the last 3 years, we've been putting money aside every single month. That's how we're going to pay for it. And what that does, it enables us to avoid the anxiety and the stress over how in the world are we going to pay for this. And it works the same in your home. If you ask me, how are you going to pay for this bill? I'll show you a budget. That's how I'm going to pay for it. Here's the plan. It shows me that I have the money to do what I intended to do according to my plan. So that short of a life-dominating disaster, and that happens. I mean, stuff like that happens. Many of you have heard that, I'm not even sure if it was Thursday or Friday, but my brother's oldest grandchild was killed in a car wreck. He was 18 years old. Stuff like that happens. Short of that kind of catastrophe, your budget tells you this is how you're going to pay your bills because you've got a plan. Does that make sense? Now, let me just really quick, because again, we're gonna move fast this morning. Really quick, give you kind of the Cliff Note version of how you go about establishing a budget, and that starts by estimating your income. And for many people, that's really simple. If you're living on a fixed income, you know how much is coming in on a regular basis. I've worked at times with people that had like seasonal employment, people that worked in the building trades, and when the weather's bad, they can't work. That makes it a little bit more complicated, but you have to start by getting the most accurate estimate of your income, because that tells you how much you have to work with. Then you have to estimate your expenses. And again, sometimes those things are fixed. Sometimes you get thrown a curveball by life. One of the things I've noticed when people estimate their expenses, it's really easy to forget things that we all do, but we don't budget for. Can you imagine in the next year giving absolutely zero gifts to anyone? Probably not. Because everyone you know has a birthday, and most of the people you know have anniversaries, and many of the people you know are going to either do Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or something, right? And we give gifts on special occasions, and often people don't budget that in. In fact, there's a phenomena that happens at Christmas where people overspend, they put it on a credit card, and it takes them about the whole year to get out of the debt that they put on their credit card for the previous Christmas. And guess what happens? A year later, Christmas rolls around again, and they do the same thing, and they wonder, how in the world did this happen? I think somebody once said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting it to be different this time. It never is. So estimate your expenses as best that you can, and then you're at a place where, okay, now I can start allocating my funds, coming up with a plan that is the best plan for me, because we're all different. And as a result, our plans will be different. And so we're going to start allocating it based on our lifestyle, based on our needs. I'll be able to look at, oh man, I'm spending a lot of money here, and I probably should cut back on that. And boy, I would like to spend more money here. And so I can expand that. You get to start allocating your funds. Let me say one other thing before we move on. when you start allocating your funds, it's a good idea to understand the difference between needs, wants, and desires. Needs are essential. You need to live somewhere. You may need a car to drive. You probably need things like electricity and heat in your home and food on your table and clothes on your back. And so there's needs. They should be your priority as far as budgeting is concerned. If I'm going to run out of money, it's going to be in the area of wants and desires. It's not going to be in the area of need. A want, in my mind, what differentiates a want from a desire is it's more about a quality issue. There's a difference between Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, Saks, and Walmart, right? Now, I think I've told you this before. I don't think God begrudges us a appropriate standard of living. I don't find the idea of a vow of poverty being scriptural at all. And so when you're in a certain position where you're working in a certain field with certain clientele, you're going to have a lifestyle that reflects that. And so there's people that shop at Nordstrom's and Bloomingdale's and Saks. I don't personally, and I'll speak as a pastor. I don't think I should look like a homeless person up here. On the other hand, I don't think I should look like somebody right out of Hollywood casting with all the latest trends and all that stuff. To me, that's a bad example either way. So I think we should have an appropriate level for where we are as far as life is concerned. Desires are what I would call luxuries or splurge items. And I've told you before, I remember reading Chuck Swindoll, and he used the account where the woman broke the very expensive perfume and anointed Jesus, and he used the phrase, every now and then it's important to break a vase. And I think that's good advice in moderation when you can afford it. I'm not for breaking a vase because I put it on my credit card. But if you've planned, if you've saved, and you're going to splurge on some fabulous vacation or something like that, I'm all for it. A good budget understands needs, wants, desires. If you come to the Monday morning Bible study, which is tomorrow morning, you can ask questions. But we're going to move on. So step one, you got to establish a budget. Step two, you got to learn to live within your means. Look at Proverbs 13, verse 7. One man pretends to be rich, yet he has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet he has great wealth. It amazes me that Solomon could write that thousands of years ago, and it is absolutely true in our society today, because we live in a society that has bought into the idea that image is everything, and they've actually coined a term called conspicuous consumption, the idea being we believe the things that we purchase make a statement about our self-worth, they make a statement about our level of success and our status in life. And so you can watch someone walking down the street or driving down the street, and they're in the right car, they're wearing the right clothes, they got all the right bling. That's jewelry for the uninformed. I'm up on all this latest stuff. So I know bling. That's probably 20 years old now. I don't know what they're calling it today. But you got the idea, right? Now, if all of that went on a credit card, he may look like he's rich. He pretends to be rich, but he has nothing. In fact, he has less than nothing. And we're going to talk about appreciation and depreciation in just a minute. All that bling that he purchased depreciated. He's still paying for it, but it's not worth what it once was. Because guess what? Clothes wears out. As soon as you drive a car off the lot, it's now a used car, right? It's not worth what it was when it was brand new. So, one man pretends to be rich. He has nothing. Another person, he doesn't care about the latest trend. He's not interested in keeping up with the Joneses. So he probably looks poor. But because he's handled his money wisely, he has accumulated wealth. And the reason he's accumulated wealth is because he has learned to be content. Notice this prayer. I think a guy named Lemuel prayed this. Proverbs 30, verses 7 to 9. 2 things I ask of you, O Lord, do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies far from me, and give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me only my daily bread. Otherwise I may have too much and disown you and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of the Lord. That's a prayer asking for the blessing of contentment. Contentment is a mental, kind of emotional state of being where you're happy, where you're satisfied with your life as is. You're not looking at your life with regret. You're not looking at your life with if only and I wish this were true. No, I am happy. I am satisfied with my life as is. And it has nothing to do with affluence. In fact, affluence often leads to greater discontentment because they've done studies. And there's a part of us, the more we get, the more we want. And so it's not tied to affluence. We can be content with a little. We can be content with a lot. Paul actually talks about that in, I want to say it's Philippians 4. It's in Philippians. It might not be 4, but it's in there. He says, I know how to be abased. I know how to abound. I've learned whatsoever state I am in, therein to be content. And the reason you can be content, whether you have a little or a lot, is because it's not tied to what you have or don't have. It's a spiritual issue. And as a steward, here's what we have. We have the Lord. And you can trust him. And when you have him and you trust him in the way that you should, you recognize he's really all I need. We looked at Matthew 6:33 last week. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and he will take care of all of our needs. And when you have contentment, it's kind of easy to live within your means. But that doesn't mean the world is going to stop trying to suck you in. Every magazine you read, every site you look at in the internet, every TV or show that you watch has these things called commercials and advertisements, and we are bombarded all day long with messages that say, you can't possibly live a full and satisfying life without this. And so there's a lot of danger that we need to avoid when it comes to living within your means. So look at Proverbs 22, verse 3. Think of credit here. A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge. The simple keep going and suffer for it. I asked the Monday morning group last week, how do the credit card companies know when your child's about to turn 18? Because every single time one of our kids turned 18, we started getting a boatload of let me give you a credit card. Let me give you a credit card. Let me give you a credit card. You know what happens to most people the first time they get a credit card? They get in trouble because they don't understand credit. We're going to spend some time talking about that later. So just think of it. A wise man, a prudent man is going to see the danger. He's going to take refuge. He's going to avoid it. But a simple man keeps going and he suffers for it. What's the danger in credit? Look at Proverbs 22, verse 7. The rich rule over the poor. The borrower is servant to, think, slave of the lender. Soon as you are in debt, you are no longer in control of your finances. Every single month, somebody knocks on your door and says, pay me. You are their slave. They literally own you. So there's some real danger in the use of credit, and it is wise to avoid it. And there's a reason why we get bombarded with advertising that emphasizes the idea of buy now, pay later. They advertise low monthly fees because a low monthly fee sounds way more affordable than the sticker price. What we fail to recognize is, what will the total cost be with that buy now, pay later, low monthly fee approach? Let me just give you one example and then we're going to move on. If you put $1,000 on a credit card, and let's just assume, I don't really know what the rate is on my card because I don't care what it is. I don't pay interest. I pay my thing in full. But let's just throw 21% there. So $1,000 at 20% interest, and I'm going to make a $25 minimum payment each month. How long is it going to take me to pay that bill off? 5 years, 10 months. How much is it going to cost me? $1,734. Does that sound like a bargain to you? I'll put something worth $1,000 here, and I'll put something worth $1,000 there, and I'll say, Donnell, you can have this for $1,000. Tony, you can have this for $1,734. Which one are you going to buy? That one is not a bargain. Paying $1,734 for something worth $1,000 is not a bargain. And so when we talk about the dangers to avoid in the area of credit, that means we need to understand credit. Proverbs 23 verses 4 and 5, do not wear yourself out to get rich. Have the wisdom to show restraint. Cast but a glance at riches, and they're gone. They'll surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. And that is such a great picture of what happens when we use credit. Before you have those things paid off, remember that $1,000 took 5 years and 10 months to pay off. Before you have it paid off, whatever you bought has worn out, it's broke down, it's gone out of style, it's depreciated, so that you are left with the debt and only with the debt. Having said that, that doesn't mean there isn't value in credit. But to get the value in credit, we need wisdom. By wisdom, a house is built, and through understanding, it is established. What is a wise use of credit? Again, I'm going quick here. I know that. To use credit wisely, again, we have to do it in the context of a budget. I'll use ourselves as an example. I have a credit card. It's a Visa. Probably had the thing for 20 or 25 years now. I put everything that they let me put on that card on that card. I carry very little cash. I might have like $20 in my pocket right now. It's just way easier and way more convenient to use my credit card. Because what it's doing is it's letting me have free money for a month. I'm using their money for a month. I get a statement every month. I look at the Visa, it's U.S. Bank. I look at them as my accountant because they itemize everything I purchased and they send me a statement saying this is where your money went. So they're my accountant. They pay me rewards. Sometimes it's 1 or 2% of whatever I purchase, but every month I pay that thing in full so that I never pay them interest. And it's been that way. 1979, Diane and I were trying to buy our first house. And we discovered the importance of credit because we had no credit. Neither one of us had ever bought anything on credit. So I'm sitting there with the mortgage guy, and he says, here's what you need to do. You need to get a credit card. You need to buy something on the credit card, and you need to pay it off, and you will have a credit history, and then I can loan you the money you need to buy your first house. And so I still remember this. We got a Sears charge card. I bought a Sears lawnmower so I could mow my lawn when I got my first house. And then when the bill came, we paid it off. We got our mortgage. And from 1979 on, we've been paying credit card bills in full every single month. True confessions. And this just irks me to no end. I shared this with the Monday people last week. A couple months ago, I'm looking at my credit card statement. We were down in Southern California. There was an item I wanted to dispute. And so I started the dispute process. I assumed I paid my bill because that's what I do. I look at my statement and then I pay it. And I got tangled up in this dispute process and I forgot to pay my bill. And so the next month I'm looking at how is that possible? And I know I paid that bill because I could remember looking at the savings. I didn't pay my bill. So since 1979, except for a couple months ago, every single credit card bill was paid in full. And I will carry that to my grave that they got interest and a penalty fee on me. But it was my fault. And I can't even blame Diane because I'm the one that does that. The sun was in my eyes. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Anyway, so if you're using credit in the context of your budget, to me, that's wisdom. Use credit with an understanding of appreciation and depreciation. Appreciation means whatever you're talking about, the value is increasing over time. If you bought a house and you keep it for any length of time, short of some kind of recession or downturn, your house appreciates in value. Other things appreciate in value. Land. There's some collectibles that appreciate in value. Depreciation means the value is decreasing over time. As I said earlier, you buy a brand new car. The minute you drive it off the lot, you know what it is? It's a used car. It's got 2 miles on it. They don't care. It's a used car now. And so it's depreciated. You go to Saks or Nordstrom's or Bloomingdale's and even Walmart, and you buy something, the first time you wear it, now it's a used piece of clothing, right? So some items appreciate, other items depreciate. So when you're using credit, I don't know that there would ever be a time that I would say it is wise to use credit on a depreciating item, with the possible exception, and we'll talk about big ticket necessity, cars. Because most people, I need a car. Many of you need a car. It's not, oh, I just want to have a car. I really don't need one. No, I kind of need a car. And so a car, probably in my mind, is the exception to, I don't know that I would ever advise using credit to buy an item that depreciates in value. Now, let's talk about those big ticket items. We have to live somewhere. For most people, vehicles are a necessity. The trouble with those big ticket items is very few of us, if you have multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a home cash, see me and we'll talk about how much you can invest in the church. Many people, most people, they don't have, $20, $30, $40,000 to pay for a car in full cash, up front. And so credit can be a valuable tool here. So that if you buy a home and you have a 30-year mortgage, here's the benefit. For most people, their budget, usually somewhere in the 30 to 35% of a budget, it's tied up in housing, either mortgage or rent. 30-year mortgage, that's now locked in for 30 years. At the same time that your home is appreciating in value. So yeah, you're using credit, but the bottom line is you're going to have to live somewhere. And by locking in that price, and if you're a renter, you probably know this to be true, at some point, your mortgage is going to be lower than the rent that you were paying, because the mortgage is locked in. Rent goes one direction, doesn't it? And that's up. So at some point, the rent's going to exceed what your mortgage is. So to me, it makes sense to use credit to buy the house, to lock in that part of your budget for the next 30 years. And we've already talked about cars. The neat thing about cars is they keep building them. That means they have to keep selling them. That means they have to give out incentives. And often you can get 0% interest, 1% interest if you have good credit. And if you've learned to use credit wisely, you'll have good credit. Let me just mention one more thing and we'll move on. Whenever you're using credit, make sure your motives are good. That they're good, godly motives. Keep in mind the difference between needs, wants, desires is what I'm getting at. So there's value in credit. We've already talked about the fact that there's danger. And let's look at some of them. This verse we've already mentioned. Debt enslaves. That's just one of the dangers. Let's look at some more. Debt presumes. Do we know what's going to happen tomorrow? Next week, next month, next year? No. But when you buy something on credit, you're presuming nothing's going to happen that will affect my ability to pay, right? So debt presumes. Debt is costly. That's how $1,000 in value becomes $1,734 in the example we used earlier. Debt is deceptive. What I mean by that is it hides the true cost of our purchases. So they've done studies where people were using cash or people were using checks or debit cards compared to people using credit cards. And they found that people using credit cards tend to buy 25 to 30% more of whatever they're purchasing because they're putting it on credit. It's not coming out of their pocket immediately. So it's deceptive. It enslaves. We've already talked about that. It bypasses God. And what I mean by that is I'm a firm believer in waiting on God and trusting Him to provide. You don't need to wait on God. You don't need to trust Him if you got a credit card. You can just put it on the card. Life goes on. So it bypasses God, and it undermines planning. With credit, we get immediate gratification. That immediate gratification has a price tag, whereas if you plan and if you save, you can accomplish the same goal. It may take you some time, but you can accomplish the same goal, but there's no price tag attached to it. The price tag was paid up front by the financial discipline to save and to wait and then pay for it in full rather than putting on the credit. Mention one last thing. When it comes to our finances, we need to be responsible. Solomon advises, be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds. And in that culture, that was wealth. For riches do not endure forever, and a crown is not secure for all generations. So what does being responsible look like? For some, it may mean they have to avoid credit because they don't have the discipline to use it. I have told umpteen people in my life, here's what you need to do. Get some scissors. Get every single credit card out of your wallet and cut them up right now, and do not apply for another one. and they just need to learn to be disciplined in the use of credit. And until they can be disciplined, don't use credit. Avoid it. It may mean learning some new habits, like saving little by little until you can pay for the item. Or, and anytime I get the say an Amish proverb, it's a good day. And the Amish proverb is use it up, wear it out. Make it do or do without. Might have to learn how to do that. For some, it'll mean be very intentional and very focused on paying off your balances. I've got balances on multiple forms of credit. You got to dig your way out of debt. So you start paying off those balances. A good suggestion is find out which of those cards or loans have the highest level of interest. Put all your money there. Get rid of that one first. Now, before we run off, let me mention one other thing, because I get this question all the time. Should I co-sign? Oftentimes it's for a family member. I'm going to read a couple verses. He who puts up security for another will suffer. Whoever refuses to strike hands in pledge is safe. A man lacking in judgment strikes hand in pledge and puts up security for his neighbor. Do not be a man who strikes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you. What do those verses say to you? Because I know what they say to me. They say it's a really bad idea to co-sign. There's a reason why whoever the lender is asking for a cosigner. There's considerable risk there. Just because they're your friend or your loved one doesn't remove that considerable risk. And as soon as you put your name on the paper, their credit, their finances are meaningless because the bank doesn't care. The reason they accepted your signature is they know you're good for it. So I advise just no. It's just a no. And sometimes it's hard to say no. I remember my son asked me, he was wanting to buy a truck. He kind of needed a truck. His truck got T-boned after about 500,000 miles. So he needs a new truck. And he could get it at one rate. If I co-signed, he could get it at a much better rate. And he wanted me to co-sign. And I did not want to own a truck in Michigan. And so I looked into the matter, and I found out the difference between what he could get and what they could get by co-signing was a couple $100 a year. I wrote him a check. I wanted to help. I didn't want to co-sign. So I wrote him a check. Vinny, here's the difference. Get your truck. It's hard to say no to your kids. Don't co-sign. Now, let me wrap this up for today. Every single one of us, and this should not be in dispute, just by virtue of the fact that we are in the United States of America, we have been blessed. You look at places all around the world, it's like the Wizard of Oz. There's no place like home. We are blessed. What we need to understand is God expects us to manage that blessing wisely. And the problem is, because we live in a broken world and because we are imperfect beings, it is really easy to get in financial trouble. There's a reason why there's so much information in Proverbs and throughout the Bible that speaks about the danger that we can get in the area of finances. There's a reason why Paul told Timothy the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. So it's really easy to get in financial trouble. If this is an area where you are struggling, please know, one, you're not the first. You will not be the last. You are not alone. It's one of the phenomena about church. We look at all the people around us and we think, man, they all have their act together. What's wrong with me? You'd be surprised. So you are not alone. There is hope. Change is possible. And help really is available. So if you would like to start the process of getting your finances of order, taking control of your finances, I can't tell you, for some people, it might be a one-year journey. For some people, it might be multiple years. But change is possible. And you can slowly but surely get out of debt and take control of your finances. So if you'd like some help, please let me know, because I'd love to help you. Let's pray together. Father, thank you for your insights in this area, because it really is easy to get in trouble. We live in a world that just bombards us with messages that it just makes the things of this world look so attractive. It appeals to our desires, and it's just so easy. And then when we get there, it's like being in prison. It's so hard. And every month, it's a nightmare of figuring out what we can pay and what we can't pay, and how are we going to deal with all this stress and all of these problems. And you are trying to protect us from all of that. I pray we would listen. And thankfully, Father, I know a lot of people here, this is like preaching to the choir. They've been doing these things for their entire life. They've got good financial habits. For some people, they're struggling. And they're kind of the ones I'm praying for right now. Lord, be an encouragement to them. It's one thing to in your mind say, yeah, there's hope. It's another thing in your heart to really believe that there's hope and take the steps that are necessary to start changing things. Give them the courage. Give them the hope. Meet them in the midst of their struggle. And give them what they need to start taking control of their finances. Because it is so good to be financially free of stress. Our relationships are instantly better. Our peace of mind and sleep at night is better. Everything gets better when we're financially free. And so, Father, I just pray that you'd speak into our hearts and minds. And those that need to make some changes, they would find the courage to do so. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.